Start that again. Thank you, everyone.
We'll add at the beginning
on this session. I know, right? Especially those of you who were on the previous session. I know it's a lot. It's definitely a marathon here, but we're trying to pack in as much value for you in the next 2 days. So hopefully this will be just as good as the session we just had. Now, as I was sharing earlier with the group, we're thinking about what some of the topics that we can talk about that hopefully not only educational, but also inspirational for the group. So the topic of STEM and highlighting one of our members' journey might be something that we can do. And also, for those of you who were in the previous session, we went ahead and started to share, real life examples, your story, your journey, and just provided feedback, comments, and made it really a dynamic session. So let me, I'm going to try my luck again here, Jeff. For that to happen, we're going to need your participation once we get into, the Q&A part. So I'm going to bug Krishna here in a minute because she has definitely some insightful and hard questions. So Krishna, you're going to be up here in a minute. Now, I'll let Carolina talk a little bit about her background in a second, but I was really moved by her story going from Colombia to Cornell and that journey of being able to do that. And now she has a patent, and I'll let her explain more about that. And I hope that Carolina, for the group, we can talk through some of the things that you guys as scientists do in the lab day to day that, us regular folks can hopefully pick up from and find a way to apply. In our previous session, we were talking about agile and project management. And we got to talking about everything from how that applies to planning your wedding, to helping kids do the chores, to running enterprise projects. So I think that there's a lot of amalgamation of knowledge that comes when we share our background. So with that, I'll start with you, Carolina. Love to hear about your journey, if you don't mind sharing it with the team, a little bit professional, a little bit personal, just to give us an idea of where you started and how you got here.
Okay, well, hi everyone. Like Ian said, I'm Carolina, and I'm from Colombia. I am from a city right at the north of the country where it's always really, really hot. It's summer all year, super shiny. So I've been since I was born, I've been studying in this city, at least, like preschool and all of that. Mm-hmm. And at some point in my life, I guess I wanted to do a little bit more of science stuff, but in Colombia, that's not, I don't live in Colombia, but at least in my city, it wasn't a strong thing to do science projects or anything scientific. It was math or chemistry, but not in my case, microbiology related. So I had the opportunity to study in the capital city of Colombia, which is Bogota. And there I discovered microbiology. So I became a microbiologist. And for the ones that don't know what a microbiologist does, I work with microbes. I work with the good ones, the ones that are in the soil or the ones that are in our food. And I've also worked with the bad ones, the ones that cause diseases or the ones that infect plants and damage all the crops and, both sides. So I finished my degree, my college degree there, and then I wanted to work a little bit. So I did a little bit of research, but it wasn't that strong. So I knew that I needed more. So then I went again back to college and I did my master's, which was a little bit more specialized in molecular microbiology, more the genetic part of the microbiology. And then I worked for a little bit in a company that is similar to the USDA in the US. And it was a really nice experience because it was the first time for me working in microbiology. But at the same time, I knew that I wanted to do more. And it was on this point where I needed to find, what was the next step? I needed to study more. I knew that I didn't want to stay in Colombia. I wanted to do a different thing, a challenge. So I decided that I was going to go study for my PhD outside. Because as an international student, you don't have funding easy. Like you have to either bring your own money or have a little bit of luck and a good, I guess, resume and application package so you get picked or like matched by a professor. So in my case, I always have different plans because you kind of have to. So I applied for a scholarship here in Colombia, and the government chose me, and I got funding for my PhD. So that's how I basically applied to Cornell, where I did my plant pathology PhD studies. And it was a really nice experience because I feel like I didn't have to worry because of the funding. I could do basically anything that I wanted. So that gave me freedom. I didn't have to like write grants or like take care of like how much money do I have, like all of those things. So I was ready to do only research, like study and research. That's it. So I spent it was like 4.5 years almost in my PhD, which I work with tomato plants. So my focus was on tomato plants and why do they get sick, specifically in New York, in upstate New York. There is this specific bacteria that always makes them sick. So I happened to be in a summer when lots of tomato plants got sick, except for one specific plant that didn't get sick. So that's when Carolina started her PhD because she needed to identify what was going on with these two plants. Why didn't get sick? So that was my PhD actually, basically focusing on the tomato plant, on the tomato side, like what's going on with this plant. And then let's see which is like what type of bacteria is causing this disease. And that took me almost 2 years for each part of the project. More of the plant side because that was like the strongest part of the project. And at the end, I guess at the end of my PhD, that was when I defended, it was in 2019. Yeah, we were already fighting for a patent, which I think is still in progress, but it's almost there. And we know that at least I've got communication from the Boyce Thompson Institute, where I did mostly of my research. They have some like really people like interested in getting the patent or something like that. So that was, I guess, something that I wasn't expecting to get. I was just there for like studying and doing research. And when I had the opportunity to be part of that, it was like, wow, I didn't know you could do that. Nobody, like I didn't have anyone, like not my professor, they don't do that here. And being at Cornell, it was like, oh yeah, now I'm part of a patent because it wasn't just me, it was like a group of 10 persons doing this research, but I was, let's say, like the lead one, the one that had to do all the work. And as soon as I finished my PhD, I decided to stay a little bit longer in the US because of COVID too. I had to like figure out what to do after finishing your PhD. Is a little bit crazy as an international because you need to figure out what's your next step. You need to find either funding, some legal issues, stuff like that. So at the end, I decided to stay a little bit longer and I did a postdoc. And at the end of last year, I decided to come back to Colombia because the government wanted me to go back. That was the deal. So I'm here. It's been 1 year after I returned, and I'm still working with plants, not with the bad ones. I haven't done anything disease related. It's more like plant, like the forest, tropical forest type of plants. So I've been doing a little bit of, I don't know, like field trips and I don't know, like crazy things that I wasn't expecting to do, but I guess that's how I can apply my PhD in Colombia for the needs of my country. So that's pretty much what I think I've done in the last 10 years of my life.
10 years and 10 minutes. Great. This is awesome. So tons of questions here. The first one is what part of your background led you to become hyper-focused? Because, when we're kids, people want to be cowboys, astronauts, princesses. No one really wants to study tomatoes for 2 years. I'd love to, hear more about, like, what was it your parents that pushed you to kind of go more into the sciences? What led you? Was there a show that got inspired you? Like what led you down this road of being hyper-focused in microbiology?
I think it was always something related to the biology of the things. I wanted
Mm,
to understand how things work. And my parents are not like, they don't have any science major. My dad is an accountant and my mom, she's a stay-at-home mom. So basically she dedicated her life to me. And she was like always like incentivizing like lots of things. I guess they wanted me to learn English and they wanted me to do like some like, I don't know, like science club, stuff like that. But it wasn't like they wanted me, like they were leading me to the
mm,
science path. No, it wasn't like that. The only thing that maybe I think started like this love for science was once, I guess my dad gave me a tiny microscope. It is
mm,
a tiny, I still have it somewhere here, but it is like the littlest thing, like super tiny.
mhm,
And I remember going to school and then we had the real ones. And I took some onion, you know, like the peel of the onion. And I knew I saw that on the big microscope. And when my dad gave me the little one, the first thing that I wanted to try was like, can I see the cells of the onion using my tiny microscope? And because I didn't have a light, I went to the patio and
mm.
trying to find the sun, which we always have. And I managed to see the cells using my tiny microscope in my patio. So
Wow.
that was like, oh, wow. And then from there, I wanted to everything like mosquitoes, anything that I could fit in the microscope. That's, I don't know, like it started like to be like, feel like I was like really curious about what I could see under the microscope. That was, I guess, the beginning. But after that, there wasn't much like science things in my school. And
Mhm.
I guess that was like a little bit, I guess it was like very passive. I didn't do much. It started again when I knew that I didn't want to go for like microbiology, no, bacteriology studies, because that was a little bit more human, but I wanted something different, but it wasn't available in my city. So that's when I knew I had to go to the capital city, so where they were offering microbiology studies. So then it was like, oh yeah, I can go there. And that's what I was doing when I was little. So that connected that experience in my childhood to what I wanted to become. I think that was, it was like a combination of things, but
That,
I think
that's
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 part.
amazing. Starting
Yeah.
with a small microscope and all the way to a patent. Should probably
Mhm.
buy my kids a miniature bank or maybe a calculator so they become millionaires in the future. Now, as you were talking, one of the things that struck me is again sticking with a topic with that much intensity and dedication. I don't know about you guys here on the call, but even getting through a 300-page book, sometimes for me, I get started chapter one, go through really quick. Chapter two, I turn on Netflix and there it's still there. I still haven't finished the book. How do you first of all, do you have that same issue that I have, which is struggle to keep focus, and two, what are some of the things, tools, tips, tricks that you do to stay on course, especially focusing on such a narrow subject matter, not just tomatoes, but a specific disease of a tomato? Um, what do you do?
It's not easy because at some point you get tired of like working with the same plants, doing the same experiments.
Mhm,
Yeah, a PhD is really long, and I did it like in a little bit less of the time that you're expected to. But it was because I was trying to match like some timelines with my boyfriend at the moment, so
mhm,
it was like a little bit of a rush. But I think also like having a really good mentor helped me to keep things in line, because he helped me like keep things on track. Like, these are the first 2 years, we're gonna focus on this, and we had already an outline, and we had decided, like for this specific semester, we're going to work on this, and then we're going to start like outlining the paper, which is going to become your first chapter of your thesis. So I think there was always this motivation to like, okay, I'm doing this because this is going to be part of this, and once I'm done with this, this is the product. So it was like linking what I'm doing now with the future, what kept me going, because there were times where I didn't want to read more about tomatoes or like plant diseases. I just wanted, yeah, I didn't want to do anything, just relax.
right.
But you knew that there was no, I mean, there is time for that, but the time now is you need to do your work. So having a good mentor that always get focused, like really focus on what you're doing. Also, my friends, at Cornell, we were always studying. So, we had fun too, but it was like, like a very academic group. So we're always doing the same thing. So at some point we were like, how do you say, like, like everyone was in charge of our process. So we were like checking, like, how are you doing with your writing? What do you need? So, like keeping those friends to help you and keep you motivated. That was also a good part, to not get bored with the same topic. And sometimes also it was nice just to meet people from different backgrounds, or like I had the chance to go to conference before COVID. So having that opportunity to know like different topics, it was really nice, because then you came back from the conference with ideas. And then it was the same topic. It was still tomatoes, but I could do different experiments. And then collaboration starting to happen. So, like it was the same thing, but then things not only had like little flavors and twisted or something like that. So I think those were the keys for me. And yeah, at some point I knew that it was like my goal, like my milestone is to finish, to defend, to go back to my country. So I guess the faster I was doing it, the faster I was gonna come back. So it was like, no, you have to do it, Carolina. You have to do it, you have to do it. So it was like something in me telling me, don't stop. I know this is not nice now, but you will be happy at the end. So just pushing me myself. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. June, I love the comments here in the chat. Love for you to jump in here with your question. Do you want to ask Carolina? If you're not eating. I know you said you're going to try to catch up on lunch.
And I got the microwave done. Yeah, so some of the things I sent just to Ian, but and my big question is, how do you reward yourself for many achievements? Because other than food.
They're the chocolates.
Well, yeah, what is important for me? So it was like, yeah, not like just having an ice cream. For example, sometimes I really miss Colombian food. And there was this thing that I could have like all the ice cream from the dairy bar at Cornell, but that was not enough. I needed my food. So I knew that at some point during the year, let's say summer or December, because I couldn't come every time to Colombia for Christmas, my reward was to spend like a week or a week and a half in New York, going to Jackson Heights and eat all the Colombian food I could have, like everything. So that was a reward for me. I know it was like not like immediate reward, but it was something that I was like really expecting. Like, I want to do that, so I'm gonna finish this because I'm then gonna spend a week. I usually went with my friends, so it was like a friends trip. Like everyone was like rewarding after all the work. So yeah, mainly it's food. I would say Colombian or not Colombian, but also just like finding some time to just like sit and relax and maybe not think about work, which is a little bit hard because you always have things to do, but it's like finding that spot where like it's fine just to not do something for an afternoon and just like if you want to sleep. And that was for me a reward. Like sometimes you don't sleep a lot because you're reading or you're writing, and then you don't. Usually at night it's hard to sleep because you're thinking about this idea that you have in your mind, so your brain doesn't shut down. So it's like,
I really get that a lot. And one of the things I wonder, I call that being off the leash. Put your doggy on a leash, but sometimes you want to take your doggy to the doggy park and just let it run around. But it's difficult to not feel guilty when you do that, because if you're goal oriented, you're also looking at the next thing and you might feel some urgency. So how do you get yourself to go off the leash?
Well, sometimes what I do, I guess one of the things that work for me, it's dancing. So every time I dance, like I take this particular dancing class. I usually go for a dance class once a week. So I know that for that hour, I'm not thinking about work. It's just me dancing. I don't care who is looking at me. I just dance. So that's a way I'm not thinking about what I'm doing. That's one thing. I think the other one is just talking to my friends and maybe talking about work, but just like, like sometimes things don't work as you expect, and then you get frustrated and so many things going on. So like just talking to my friend is also like a good time to talk and relax and not think about what's going on. But dancing is the best for me.
Dancing. All right. Well, Kathleen, thank you for dropping a question here. I was actually thinking about pulling you in here. We'll get your question, but I wanted to ask you a question actually, since you have a deep background in education. One of the things that we're trying to do, and this is, part one of hopefully a longer series, which is get more people interested in STEM and also helping people who are parents like myself to get their kids interested into STEM. And mostly, I have two daughters. I really want to get them more into the science route. I'd love to hear your thoughts, Kathleen, on what you've done in the past to maybe inspire, especially some of the female students to look into, science and see if that's a path for them.
I appreciate it, Ian. Thank you. And so exciting to hear, Carolina, about your journey. So I do have some specific questions for you just about your PhD experience. But Ian, in response to your question, I can give you a really specific example. So in a district in Colorado that's just outside of Denver, it's called Aurora Public Schools, which is one where I worked for several years, but also one that I provide a lot of support to. Currently, just in the last few weeks, passed a huge initiative to launch a number of P-Tech programs. And when you ask the question about how to get more people involved, students need to be exposed to what the possibilities are. And the only way to do that is through programs. There can be the serendipitous connections that you make, like as minute, but as important as somebody's parent coming to school for, bring your parent to work day. And they talk about their work in Colorado. There's a lot of aerospace engineering where people actually are rocket scientists.
Literally, right?
Come into classrooms, and it's a big military community as well. So there's that exposure piece. But when we create pathways, especially for students impacted by poverty, students with a high population of students of color, those are the communities that are most often marginalized in terms of access to high quality STEM programming. And so in Aurora, it took us a long time. I started working on this in Aurora in probably 2015, and it took until 2022 for the board to approve these three programs. Wow. And P-Tech is an opportunity. Actually, the first P-Tech high school started in Brooklyn, and I can't remember I should know this off the top of my head. I can't remember the area of focus, but it's an opportunity for ninth graders to be part of their home high school, but they are enrolled in a school within a school model where they are and it's all STEM related, where they are taught by industry experts. And there's a local education association, like a community college, that would ensure that they could get dual enrollment credits or concurrent enrollment credits. So they're earning college credit when they're in high school. But what's most important is so Lockheed Martin is a good example of a partner where a corporate partner, they like adopt a school essentially. And so for the kids in that cohort, and it could be, I don't know, 150 students or something like that, their entire high school, they're being taught by people in the STEM field every single day. They're earning credits, they're getting mentored. And there are two things that result from that. They graduate with an associate's degree when they graduate from high school, and they graduate with a guaranteed job with that organization. And so that is one way that a student's direct experience with STEM could be profound. And when there's a community, and there are many of these communities across the country that is deeply committed to creating pathways for STEM options, cybersecurity, health sciences, computer science, aerospace, all of that. It's just that becomes a magnet for students to become more interested. And it has to start early. Like when I was in classrooms every day, my hope was that I was going to see kindergartners, we're doing coding projects, simple coding projects, and girls and all students having equal access to those types of opportunities. But I think it's in the communities where STEM is a focus, where there's access to STEM experiences and a deep commitment to ensuring that all students, with sometimes with a strong emphasis on girls, to get them more involved in STEM possibilities. So that's a specific example of something that I've been honored to be a part of here in the past few years.
That is amazing, Kathleen. And please go ahead with your question.
Okay, all right. So I am curious from your perspective, like what was the hardest part of your experience in the program? And then, so I want to hear about that. And then I want to hear what you do, especially as a woman of color, and a woman from outside of the country, being in this new setting. How did you kind of get yourself out of those moments when you felt stuck? Aside from dancing, which I needed to do a lot more dancing during my program, it probably would have helped me a lot.
So there were definitely lots of challenging times during my PhD. I think that the hardest one was, it was in the middle when I was finishing the first part, which was let's say the microbiology part, because I'm a microbiologist. That's why I studied. So I knew I could do that easy. But then the challenging part was combining the plant side, which I didn't have that background. I learned about plants during my PhD, but I'm not an expert. Well, at least I wasn't a big expert at the time I was doing my PhD. So I needed a lot of help from a lot of people. And it became really frustrating because I didn't know all the tools, all the things at that time. And the time was running. It's like, oh, you need to get these results. You need to graduate. It's almost third year of your program. And I remember I was trying to identify this particular gene in the tomatoes, and I had all the material I needed, but I didn't know what was going on. I couldn't find, there was a problem and I didn't know how to find the solution. So what helped me was to just, like talk. I needed to talk. Sometimes I just kept things to myself, like thinking I can just like solve everything by myself. But there was this time when I was just like literally like super frustrated, and then a postdoc saw me like, I don't know, like just staring at the window and thinking about what to do, what else can I do? And he was like, well, tell me what's going on. Like maybe we can work out something. And from that conversation, it was like a Friday at 5 p.m. Like I wasn't doing anything that Friday. I was just like thinking about what's going on. And he suggested me like, why don't you try this thing? Maybe this is what is not working. And after a week or two, I repeated the experiment, and that's when it worked. But I was like, hey, no, this cannot be true. It didn't work before. Now it's working. I need to do this 3, 4, 5 times. And when it worked, it was like, yeah, all you needed to do was, like wait, think, and talk to someone. So because they know more than you, they are postdoc, they went through this. They have better ideas of solving these things. So like not keeping everything to yourself is not a good thing. Like you have to talk if you're in a lab. So talking was like the best way to get unstuck from that challenging part. And after that, I felt more confident because I knew that I could do it. And it was just like writing and then defending, and everything was better at that time. So that was really challenging. And then the other part that was challenging too was at the end, because you're not doing any more experiments. You have all your data, now it's analysis. And the writing part, it is, I don't know, like it's everything happening at the same time, because you have to write, you have to figure out what you're gonna do next. You have to figure out where do you wanna work? Do you wanna come back? If you wanna stay, find a job, but then you need a work permit. So like you have to do many things at the same time. But the priority is your thesis. So writing, you just don't like wake up and start writing. You need to have this like, I don't know, like momentum where everything starts flowing. But you also need to read. So you need to read to know what to write, and then you have to like come up with arguments to defend your point. So it was really draining, and I had to like kind of defend a little bit earlier, which made things even worse because I wasn't prepared to defend faster. So it was like crazy. I remember I really had bad nights, you know, like writing up to like 2 a.m.
Mhm.
and going to bed, but I was like, I need to just go to sleep, but I'm not sleepy, but I need to. So I went to the gym to find like, like get tired and then go to bed. It was not an easy part.
Thanks for that, Carolina.
Like talking to my friends, talking to my family, and just like thinking about the price, you know, like you're going to defend this soon. Just keep thinking about that. And this is just the draft. Like after that, you get corrections, and then it's done. Like you're almost ready. They're letting you to present your thesis. That's it. Like they are good with what you have. So like not worrying too much, but the writing part was really challenging.
Krishna, you had a question?
Yeah, I have a question. So I would like to introduce myself as a mother who is having a child on your path. So, and I totally understand your pain of going through that, thesis, and, you got to do it on time, because I was also I went through the same thing doing my master's in computer science. You got to do it at this time, and you got to finish it because you're coming as an immigrant and you have certain things that you need to accomplish within a certain period of time, and that's about it. My question to you is, now I have this ambitious girl who is going into that path of wanting to become a doctor, wanting to do something in the research, and she's truly passionate about it. I can see her when she talks about it, but there are at times that I feel like, she's completely drained out, and she's completely like, you have sleepless nights and things like that. How did your parents help you? How am I supposed to help her? I mean, I wanted to ask this question to Kathleen too, because she's in
Great
the
question.
educating. I don't think if I'm well equipped to say that I am fully supporting her, but I do want to, because I'm a woman in STEM, and I have an ambitious daughter who is going to become a woman in STEM. And I want to fully support that. And how do I do that? This is a stressful journey. We are just not even begin the journey. We are just not even at the start line. We are getting to the start line, preparing for the start line, but still we are stressed. How do we handle that? How your parents supported you through this entire, journey of yours?
Yeah, so for these 4.5 years, I wasn't with my parents. So they were in Colombia and I was in Ithaca. So I couldn't have them in person. So I guess at the beginning it was just, like they were checking on me. They were really concerned about, like going back to classes. So they kept asking me, how was this class? How are you feeling? Like just like keeping in touch. But then when things got hard, I guess, especially there was one semester when my mom had the time to spend like all semester with me. So that really helped me a lot because I was taking care of writing and doing the research, and she was helping me with the rest. So that was a big, big help from my parents, especially from my mom, because my dad was working. And at some point when things were like really hard, when we were writing and stuff, they were just checking on me, like, how are you doing? And just like encouraging me. Like that's all I needed, at least in my case. Just knowing that they were like saying good morning to me, how you're doing, or like, did you eat? What are you doing? Are you like taking a break? Maybe you should see your friend and have an ice cream or go dancing. Like just leave the apartment, or just like walk around. I don't know. They really were like reminding me to do that, because nobody was kind of there for me. It was like you're only focusing on writing, and you basically forget about everything else. So having them reminding me about things like normal things, that was, I think, in a way they helped me. And at some point also, as a reward, I depended on August, and the week after they flew to the US. So I got to meet them in New York. So that was also, you know, like a reward, like this is gonna end soon, but then I'm gonna be with my family for a month. So I'm just gonna keep pushing, Carolina. And that's how I did it. And that's how my parents helped me. But I understand it's hard for them because they were not with me. So that was like really hard for them. But that's how.
Winifred, have a question?
I don't have a question. I have a comment. And that comment is like, you know, piggybacking on that question, Krishna. And I'll give you some context. So I have a daughter who is 21. She's in Princeton studying software engineering. And I'm a STEM person. I'm very passionate about promoting STEM education, but from a very balanced perspective. You know, we are always encouraging, opening the doors. I speak internationally about this. I'm on the UN STEM working group, so I'm passionate about this. But my daughter, being an ambitious young girl, you know, so many times I have to pull the breaker and say, you know, it's enough. You know, she was calling me while I was in this meeting. And she has 4 offers for an internship with Microsoft, Google, Bloomberg, and Salesforce. But she wants an internship with an investment company, 2 Sigma, whatever, I don't know about this 2 Sigma. And when you have very ambitious type A personalities, they can go and go and go that it's very hard to kind of tell them that balance is important in life, that you have to lead yourself, you have to take care of your body. It's not just about performance. It's also about your being and being fully present, you know. I mean, because all their life they've been getting A and they've been top of the class. And so as they try and enter the workforce, they still want to keep that momentum, not knowing you can have a burnout. So for me, as a mature woman in 5 decades now, and my experience of going through different things, I'm like, I have a lot of challenge working with young women like Carolina, to say, take it easy, please. I mean, I just told her, I said, don't call me again about this 2 Sigma. I'm sick of hearing about this company. So I find it that, you know, with very ambitious people like PhD people, very bright young girls, that it's always a challenge to say, take a breath. This is not the end of the world. You know, just enjoy this journey. So Carolina, I'm so glad that you love to dance. I love to dance. I dance Zumba. I'm a Zumba instructor. But it took me some decades before I understood that that was as important as getting A, and it's as important as working in these top companies. So it's always a challenge. So I just kind of wanted to put that thought to just share it here. So not a question really, but a comment. And I want you, Carolina, to put it in your back pocket, because the world will always push you, perform, do more, be the top of this. And sometimes you can forget to breathe. You can forget to breathe. Mindfulness, breathing, taking it easy. I call it leading yourself. And I think that's what this whole conference has been. Take care of you, you know. And I just told her, and she's so upset. So she said, Mom, I'm getting off the phone. But it's so important to tell young women like you that there are landmines in the tech world. My father was the one who introduced me to tech at 16, so over 4 decades ago. But they didn't tell me about landmines. I used to work on oil rigs as a field engineer, and I worked there for 3 years, and I got real burnt out. So I always tell young girls, you have got to balance things out. You must prioritize your well-being. I believe the Metal guy, the CEO, he talked about health, taking care of you. So in all your achievements, I just want to remind you that it is vitally important, especially as you age. So if you don't take care of yourself when you're young, when you're older, you're going to kind of pay some price. So I just want to encourage you that, you know, there are landmines. Take care of yourself, be aware of your environment, keep yourself safe, because you are in a world where being a female in tech is a minority. So be aware of who you're allowed to have access to you. Put some boundaries, very important. Be safe be secure, prioritize your well-being in addition to wanting to excel, but don't excel at the expense of yourself, because the job will go on whether you are there or not. So I just wanted to put that there. That is my mommy hat. That is my mentor hat, because I just had to tell one young woman here who is 21 and who wants to somehow split herself into 4 and do 4 internships. Not sure how that is going to happen, but anyway, we're going to watch and see. But I'm always cautioning them, because I used to be like that, but I paid the price. I don't want you to pay that price. So I'm done speaking. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Winifred. So I can relate to that. And I just want to say something really short. My mentality when I got in my PhD was like study and research. That was it. And at that time I had a boyfriend, which kind of allowed me to like be like, oh no, you have a boyfriend. You have to also spend time with your boyfriend. So he was like the one telling me, like it's not always work or the lab, but at the same time, because he was also doing his PhD, that was easy to manage because both of us were like had the same lifestyle. But at some point I started to notice that it was like my 3rd or my 4th year, and I was like missing so many of the experiences that Cornell was offering me. So it was like, why I have done like this much of work? Like I know that I'm progressing. I know that I don't have to spend like Saturdays or Sundays in the lab. Like I can, like use that time to do things for me. And then it's when I realized, like I have a very good mentor who is not pushing me to do, like I'm the one pushing me. Like I can just slow down and just, like be confident about the progress that I'm doing and enjoy this experience too, because like I had nice memories of Cornell, but I wish I enjoyed it more because I spent a lot of time studying and in the lab where everyone was like in the lake, swimming, doing summer things. So I get that, I guess, now. And that's why, well, I'm back here. I'm slowing things that like, this is important. It's nice to have a job. It's nice to do what I need to do, but I also have a family. I also want to take time for me. Like my priorities change after I finish my PhD and after I realized that I missed some of the things that I should have, like experienced. So yeah, I relate to that part too.
Amazing. Thank you, Winifred. And I think that reminder goes well for all of us here, because the reason we're here is we're trying to advance ourselves, share, become better. But in the process, we tend to forget, numero uno, which is taking care of our own health. I'd love to pull in Chris here. Chris, you're the guru of the balance between taking care of yourself and also being productive in society. What advice would you give for these type A go folks to kind of pace yourself, which is really hard when you're young, you're trying to conquer the world, or in Elon's case, worlds. What advice do you have for the group?
The bottom line is do what you prefer in the way you prefer to do it. There is no, I've said this before, there's no silver bullet. Everybody's looking for give me the 5 steps.
Right.
It's like, there are no 5 steps. And people hate me for that sometimes, because it's like, I just want the damn 5 steps. And I'm like,
Give it to me now.
yeah. And I get it, because we're trained to believe that by following certain rules, and society sets it up in a way that makes this possible, that you will achieve success. But nobody tells you what the definition of success is while you're trying to do that. So each one of the women that I've listened to share their experiences, I listen to everything. I literally hear things and see things in different ways than people do. You calling me a guru, Ian, is like, thank you, but no, I'm just, I just hear things differently. And I try to remind people, you're enough. Like that's almost an embarrassment to say to you, you're enough. It's like, you're more than enough. You create universes. You are part of the universe. And this isn't a metaphysic conversation. This is just a scientific reality based on the limited amount of science that we actually know. So what I like to tell people is when you do something that you prefer and the way you prefer to do it, it's not always the way you mapped it out in your thinking brain. I mean, science tells us what, 10% of your brain is actually the part that you're aware of. It's like the iceberg analogy, and then 90% of it's underwater. It's the subconscious, the unconscious. So, doing dancing, as you were just talking about, mindful walking with your family, your loved ones, pets, those are outside of you. And that's unconditional love in a lot of ways. Kathleen wrote about her experience, and I love it, Kathleen. And I appreciate that you had your partner as a support for your dreams, for your hopes, somebody to fall back on. So we create that space, right? We create it through what we're allowing ourselves to receive. So when we get back to knowing that we're creators, and here's a practice I'll ask you guys to do. None of you guys will do it, but I'll just ask you to do it anyway. Because I was
Carolina will do it twice.
Yeah.
Overachiever.
You're an overachiever. You might do it twice. And I want you guys, I'll put my email. Jeff, if you could put my WITI email in there, that would be great. Send me a response. I want you to take your phone. It's got a timer on it, which I love, right? So set it for 5 minutes. Go into a bathroom or a quiet space, someplace with a mirror. And I want you to look in the mirror at yourself, to your eyes, and say, I love myself. I love myself. And just keep saying it. I love myself. Do it for 5 minutes. If you're in this room, raise your hand if you've already told yourself today that you love yourself. Winifred did. Wonderful. Mindfulness practice. You're the only one that I see. I didn't do that today, by the way. So I just told myself right now mentally, oh, by the way, I love you. When Ken Rakowski talked, I've known Ken since I was in 6th grade. He was one of the speakers today. I told him I loved him in front of all the WITI membership, and I don't care, right? It's like, because I really do love this man. He's a great person. If we don't tell ourselves we love ourselves, then how can we expect that to come back, right? So it's how you speak to yourself that I want you to pay attention to. Do it for 5 minutes continuously. And then if you feel comfortable, send your response to me and let me know how it went. But I love you guys. And I mean that from the truest sense of the word. This is an amazing community. You all have amazing stories. You're doing amazing things. I always tell my groups and people I work with, you're fine. It's a joke. It's like, you're fine. Everything's fine. Even in the midst of a complete chaos and storms, and Winifred's daughter saying, I think it's 6 Sigma, but if there's 2 Sigma, I want to know about that too, Winifred. But ultimately, she's fine too, right? It's just remind yourself to breathe and be with that. Hopefully that's a long way around answering your question, Ian, but thanks for letting me share.
Thank you so much. And I'll pull in Wayne here. Wayne, you're also a go type of guy. We're talking here about actually the reverse. How do you go from being at full speed all the time to actually pacing yourself, so in the long run you can actually be more productive? Any thoughts or practices, I should say?
I don't do that.
Okay.
I am here for a very limited time, and some of that time is taken up with sleep. Some of that time is taken up with feeding this fat face. And so what limited time and I'm raising 3 girls. That's why I stepped in. I'm raising 3 beautiful young women who I came in hoping that I would be able to hear something about mentoring them, and they all are going into the STEM field. So I'm extremely pleased about that. So that's
check the chat too for that.
Say that again.
Check the chat. There's a lot of links in there.
Thank you. Yeah, that's why I came in. So, thank you for making this available.
Can I ask a group a quick question? I heard some feedback earlier that you needed to have a more professional background that was less cluttered. But personally, I'm really enjoying this, and I'm totally envious of that video. So what do people think? This is something I bring to the party. I'm an environmentalist. I have a degree in biology as well as computer science. And when I'm picking companies to work for, I'm not picking companies that crud up the world. So, what do you think about these backgrounds you're seeing right here? There's 3 people with environmental backgrounds.
I would like you physical Zoom backgrounds. Okay, okay.
No, I'm not actually in the Redwoods.
Okay. Well, I am in Lake Placid now. For me, I am a firm believer that the organism is shaped by the environment more than we care to admit. And I think, especially for Carolina studying tomatoes, put the same tomato in a different environment, you'll definitely get different results, right, Carolina? So making sure that you're in an environment where you can survive and thrive, I think is very important. And Wayne, thank you for joining here, because that's really one of the reasons why we put this together. I have two girls of my own that I'm trying to, encourage to get into science as well. And one of the things that I've picked up from Carolina is curiosity, just opening opportunities for her. It was she got gifted a small microscope when she was young, and that kind of opened the doors. And that curiosity just stems from exposure, as Kathleen mentioned. And we have a few more minutes here. I definitely love to hear from the group. In your experience, what has led to you being curious about your field and has led you to your success? I definitely love to open up to the group. Winifred, how about you? What made you curious? You seem like a very curious person.
Yes, I'm a very curious person. I was actually writing an essay for Wayne. I do a lot of mentoring, and so I was giving him some ideas about, just his daughters and for other daughters. So I was trying to write there. I think really entering spaces where people have conversations. I really believe there's so much power in dialogue. So when you enter into a psychological safe space where information is being transferred, people are sharing knowledge, you find that it begins to spark your own curiosity and really spur your own innovation. Just when I'm into the brain neuroscience, so I'm a brain health coach. Just the way the brain works, it begins to shape the way you think, and you find that ideas are coming. But one of the things I also like to do is that I always go around with my house is full of little books, because I always put down ideas on paper. So I have books by my bedside, books all over my house, but these are empty books so that when the ideas come, I capture them, because they can just go away. And when they come, I capture them. And then I'm always looking at what you call time to market. You look at those ideas, you write down all these ideas, on different things, and you say to yourself, can I get a team together to make this idea a reality? And you just, you use the concepts of design thinking, human-centered design, and try and bring it to market. And if it doesn't work, you try and, you work with it. And if it's not going to work, you kind of abandon it. So you capture ideas, and really those ideas are created when you enter into spaces where you are very intelligent people speaking, sharing information. So that is how I keep myself very, very curious, by just have conversations. I mean, I love dialogue, so I'm always in one conversation or the other. Actually, my mother says that when I was born, Carolina, you will notice that very hot habanero peppers were put in my mouth by my grandmother. That has stopped me. That means that I've spent my whole life talking and talking because of the heat of the peppers. She's just joking because I love to talk, but I love to listen to. So that's what keeps me curious, just being in these spaces and capturing my ideas and looking to put a team together to bring those ideas to market. And that's kind of one of the things I put on my on the chat, is that when you bring girls, the way girls learn is that you bring girls into community of other girls and you give them a project to do. You want them to use their head, their heart, and their hands. Girls need to connect with what they are doing for them to continue to be interested. Boys are different. So when you're trying to encourage your daughters to get into technology, you want to actually introduce, I call it project-based curriculum. Kathleen must know about it. She's an educator. So when you do outreach, whatever country I do outreach internationally. So whatever country you're doing outreach, a girls' school, you want to tell them, like we just built, we build different things. They come up with the ideas, but in groups, every girl needs a sister tribe. So when you get girls together and you give them a project, they laugh, they bond with each other, they build. So it's more than just the project. It's now about sisterhood that is being created. That's how you help them to stay in STEM. So that's what keeps them curious. You know, how can we solve all these problems? Girls want to know that the problems that they're doing, the designs, is making an impact in the society. So that's kind of one way you need to keep them curious, and you keep them in STEM. So I'm done speaking. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much, guys. I hope you had as much fun as I did. This was very insightful. Thank you, Carolina, for your time. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And let's continue to inspire young girls to get into STEM. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carolina.
Take care,
No
guys.
worries. Bye.